So today I am blessed, or rather we are blessed to have a very able panel. The panel today shall be consisted of Honorable Farah Maalim, who we hope shall join us at some point. We have blessed enough to see that Honorable David Sankok kept time and he has joined us. We are expecting to see Honorable Isaac Mwaura as well in the debate. We also have Dr. Murage and Njagagua, and we also have Dr. Ongore, who shall be joining us. And just to introduce the panel, before we begin, allow me to introduce the panel. Honorable Farah Maalim is a former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. We have Honorable David Sankok, who is a Member of Parliament nominated under the Jubilee Party to represent persons with disabilities. And we also have Honorable Isaac Mwaura, who is a nominated Senator representing persons with disabilities, again nominated under the Jubilee Party. We have with us Dr. Murage Njagagua, who is a lead consultant at Pacewise Consulting. He is also a full-time lecturer at the University of Nairobi in the Department of Finance and Accounting, and he is a member of the Committee of Fiscal Studies at the University of Nairobi as well. He's a CPA holder as well as a CPS. And we have Dr. Vincent Ongore, who is our fifth panelist today. He is a thought leader in tax policy and strategic administration. And he is a strategic administration, strategic transformation, and corporate governance, on which he has been published widely. He is a partner at Corporate Africa consulting company, and he is also passionate about judicious application of resources to facilitate societal transformation. So welcome all of you. Just to begin this debate, as I mentioned earlier, I've seen Dr. Murage Njagagua and Honorable Sankok already present at the meeting. I'd like us to begin by asking the question that, we've seen several sides coming up and giving their position on this particular debate. We have seen the Raila Odinga team coming up and giving its position. We have seen even the president speaking through his people. We have seen Senate quite divided on this matter on this issue. I'll just give our panelists 5 minutes to begin by giving us the introductory sentiments on this particular debate. So, Honorable Sankok, if you may unmute your mic, kindly just give us your introductory statements on this particular statement that we have as a country. Where do we stand right now?
So let me begin by saying that any nation is defined by two parameters. That is the landmass and the population. So it follows then that every other issue should be around these two parameters, especially when it comes to allocation of resources. It should take into consideration the two parameters that define a nation, because the nation is not only defined by population, it is defined by population and landmass. That is why we have boundaries. Therefore, when it comes to the revenue allocation bill, we as pastoralists mostly will have wanted the formula to follow the issue of 1 kilometer, 1 shilling, simply because the government will never invest its resources on people. Personal investment is a personal responsibility. Any government, and in this case, I'm thinking of any progressive thinking government, will invest its resources on land. It's not on people. And population will automatically follow the investment and development that is on land. We are highly populated in Nairobi, not because Nairobi have any underground resources. It is not that Nairobi is a highland that is very productive. No, it is because Nairobi have good roads, good hospitals, good infrastructure, social amenities, and big companies, manufacturing companies and industries. That is why there is high population there. If today we invest in Loyangalani and we have infrastructure there, social amenities there, the population will follow. At the moment, we have 30,000 Kenyan immigrants who follow development to Qatar, a tiny desert peninsula. So let us have a formula that will make sure that the resources are invested on land.
Okay. I hear you, Honorable, saying that we should have a formula that ensures that resources are focused on land. I'd like to invite Dr. Murage Njagagua to just make his opening remarks on this particular debate. Dr. Murage, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Good evening, panelists and audience. This is Murage. Now, I think for me, thank you for having me, Nairobi Forward. This is a nice opportunity to discuss matters pertaining our country. As Mheshimiwa said, this is a very emotive issue. And it's good we handle it in a way that it will bring the country together, not divide. Remember, this is not about the first time we are doing this. We started revenue sharing in 2013. That was the time we had the first basis. Then the second basis came in around 2016. So this is, now we are having the third base. So really, we need to have a very super debate on this, so that whatever goes to the counties, everybody will be happy, and we will have our country intact. Otherwise, if it's polarized, then we are likely to lose the issues. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
For now, I've also seen, I think, Honorable Mwaura in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your opening remarks. I see Dr. Murage is insisting on us having a conversation that is basically one that does not push us to the point where we are polarized as a country, but one that ensures that we remain united as a nation. Honorable Isaac Mwaura, if you may unmute your mic, please, so that you can be able to address us. We were giving the panelists a few minutes to just give us the opening remarks on this particular stalemate, seeing that the Senate has met. This is the 7th time the Senate is finding it difficult to come up to a conclusion on this particular debate. As a senator, as a nominated senator, and we saw you vote in the last, take a vote in the last session that took place, I think, was it on Tuesday last week? This particular week, you gave your vote this particular week. What is your stance on this stalemate? Give us your opening remarks on this. And I introduced you earlier, I don't think you were present. For those of you who don't know, Honorable Mwaura is a nominated senator representing persons with disabilities from the Jubilee Party. He was also a former nominated member of parliament. And Honorable Mwaura, karibu sana to the debate.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I really must commend Nairobi Forward for this great panel, apart from those who are giving us the songs of DJ Adrian. I think that's good advertisement, but this is the wrong forum. And just to say that I have been the vice chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee of Senate until recently, when I was made an assistant to the speaker as a member of the speaker's panel. And so this debate has been with us for quite some time. And it is good that we debate it with sobriety and understanding that the nation is having a conversation with itself. And there is nothing wrong with that. People can be polemic about it, but then that contestation and hierarchical antagonism is important, if at all, to set the parameters of how we live as a country. I want to disabuse the notion that you invest in land. You invest in people. You invest in people. People are the ones who generate resources. People are actually the best capital. Now, if you look at capitalism, we talk about land, labor, and capital. But then there's a human resource. You can't just call it labor. And we are having a dichotomy that is really very historical, Ruth, because if you look at this debate, and I've written a lot about it in the last couple of weeks, it is taking us back to 1963 about the big tribes and the small tribes as well, Kanu and Kadu, and how it was actually formed. And I've been actually interrogating some of the key protagonists, and you realize the issues are really, and coming to 1965, when you have the African socialism and its application on the economic planning in Kenya, and what that has meant in this country. Now, it's also important to look at other jurisdictions where devolution has been practiced. And I think for me, the best example is England, our colony. And before I come to England, it's good to say that Kanu, at that point, had populous communities. And if you look at the demographics in 1963, up to actually 1982, because I was looking at that data, maybe even further downwards, the two major tribes are actually Kikuyu and then followed by Luo. That has since changed to Kikuyu, Luya, Kalenjin, and then Luo, because that time there was nothing like Kalenjin. Kalenjin was a conglomeration. It was formed, I think, 1976 or thereabout by Taita Towet, or thereabout. So you find that at that point, then the smaller tribes hired a consultant from Switzerland, where they have cantons, the 7 cantons, and which are actually divided around language, the French, the German, the English, the Flemish, and others. If you go to Geneva, you'll see that. And they have actually a rotating presidency. So that is what was the basis of Majimboism. And you find Julius Kambarage Nyerere actually saying the problem of only having one center. Because when you have one center, if you make a mistake there, it reverberates there. But then it was also caught up in the contestation around communism and capitalism. In fact, it is elucidated that the person who really wrote the 1965 session of paper number 10 was none other than Professor Terry Ryan, who just retired from National Treasury, placed at the heart of the National Treasury by the CIA. And you remember Tom Mboya with the Kennedys. And of course, Tom Mboya was the one who was advancing that. And this was actually a perpetuation of the history of investing in high potential areas. Now, coming to the UK is actually practicing devolution because they're actually 4 nations into one. You have the Welsh, you have the Scottish, you have the English, and of course, Welsh, and the other one, I mean, I stand guided. So there are 4 nations. So you have England, you have Scotland, you have, and the Irish, sorry, and you have Northern Ireland, and then the state of Ireland. And you can see this devolution where then you have people with their small parliaments and all of that. Now, the question that then we ask ourselves is what is happening is that we have localized our ideologies as a fusion of our ideologies around nationalism versus now devolution. But surprisingly, Ruth, we are talking about countyism, where we are breaking it down further from the tribe, actually, so that then you find a county like Nyamira is losing, but Kisii is gaining, or Vihiga is losing, and Kakamega is gaining, or Meru is losing, is gaining, and Tharaka Nithi is losing. So it's actually a question that we need to ask in terms of the design of devolution, really. Is it actually working? Because you must also have unity of purpose, so that then even as you're devolving, you still remain as a nation. And that's why you find Yashpal Gai speaking very ably, that if you look at the principles of devolution is in Article 174 of the Constitution, they are safe and sound. But when you look at the design, because the Bomas draft actually wanted 74 districts and 14 regions. But these 14 regions then would be more cosmopolitan, it would be more multi-ethnic. But if you look at our counties, they actually go along the tribal lines, the way that then they were used to contain people during colonialism. Now, that has become our character, and you cannot take away counties from people because it's like removing meat from a hyena, But then also it introduces the issue of equity versus equality. Now, if you want everybody to be happy, divide the monies into all the 47 counties, it will not be fair. Now, let me give the question as to why, therefore, then there is a justification for 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling principle. And this would be my last comment before others come in. Is that number 1, if you look at a county like Kiambu, where I come from, we are 2,417,735 persons, to be precise. Out of 10 people, 7 may be Kikuyu, 3 are not Kikuyu, because that county is urbanized. So it's not really a question of just one tribe. And that can be said of so many other counties, because there are pockets of other people who are not indigenously from there. So let's also remember that even when we're having this conversation, at the end of the day, we are all Kenyans. But the debate we must have. So if you combine the counties of Wajir, Marsabit, and Mandera, they also have 2,490,000 people. They have a total allocation of 25 billion. Kiambu has 9.4 billion. It has got 8 billion in terms of wage bill alone. So going back to England, not even England, go back to Greece. Greece was one country, but there were 2 cities, of Sparta and Athens. And it is actually increasingly becoming a concern that cities are developing, or highly concentrated areas, to become like mini states. So you find that also in New York, you find it in Chicago, and even the mayor of London. They are very powerful people, so that even the economies there may be thriving when other places are in recession. Now, if you look at our GDP, then you have 43% of the GDP, nearly 50, being contributed by Nakuru, Nairobi, Kiambu, and Mombasa. That is where monies are. Now, yes, you can invest in the desert, and we must invest in the desert. But people will increasingly come to urban centers because of economies of scale, because of opportunities, and because of the market. Remember, because the more we are the market. So that then if you look at the economy of Nairobi, it could actually be bigger than some of the economies of some of the African countries. Now, this is the contestation. When we talk about sharing of resources, ladies and gentlemen, we are not talking about depriving people of resources. We are talking about you get your fair share. So we have now divided ourselves in Senate Team Kenya and Fair Kenya team. So we are two of them. And we are saying, get your fair share. If you're 876,000 getting 10 billion, and another county with 2.4 million getting 9 billion, that's not fair. Get your share. And then in the same place, be equalized through the equalization fund. If you look at Article 204 of the Constitution, it is very clear that monies for equalization fund should go to 4 areas. That is infrastructure, that's roads, electricity, water, and health. So that then you use such to leverage on this. And the Commission for Revenue Allocation has actually come up with a policy actually called the marginalization policy, which is actually delineating this division into about 14 counties up to the sublocation level. So that's the conversation. And also we need to discuss further how then therefore, do you also move away from countyism, if I can call it, the countyism, so that you go down to the ward level, because the essence of devolution is to bring government closer to the people. Otherwise, as I have said very clearly, you don't share food, you share food according to the number of people, not the size of the dinner plate. I submit.
All right, Honorable Mwaura is insisting on the fact that we need to invest in people as opposed to landmass, which is basically moving away from what Honorable Sankok had posited earlier on. If you're joining us for the first time, please allow me to invite you to this debate. We've had submissions from Honorable Mwaura, who's just finished a few moments ago. He's a nominated senator representing persons with disabilities, and he is insisting in investing on people as opposed to landmass. He's talking about the fact that over and above, I mean, the counties that are losing should basically seek resort or seek help from the equalization fund and the marginalization fund. So we have also had submissions from Honorable David Sankok. We also had from Murage and Njagagua, who submitted earlier on. And they have just given their submissions. The 3 of them have given their submissions on what they think about the stalemate as it stands right now. So we had Honorable Sankok speaking about the issue of land, as well as Mheshimiwa Mwaura insisting on the fact that we need to invest in people as opposed to landmass. So as we proceed, I'd like the panelists who are present right now to just give us a reflection on the second generation revenue allocation formula. What worked and what did not work? Why are we now proposing the third generation revenue allocation formula? What worked in the past and what did not work that made us now say that we are adopting this new formula that's before us? Honorable Sankok, if you may take on, please just carry on from here.
Yeah, first of all, I want to congratulate my senior, that is Honorable Mwaura. He's my senior in terms of leadership in parliament, but he's my junior in terms of age. He's quite younger than me, and I'm his senior in terms of other things. So surely, why we are changing this thing is an origin of what happened in 1965, session paper number 10, in which some communities and some regions were intentionally marginalized. So it's not the issue that second generation formula did not work. It is the issue of some people in the leadership who are very cunning, who have always used their cunning ways to try and marginalize areas that have ever been marginalized. Through session paper number 10 of 1965, what happened is that they came up with a formula of saying that all Kenyan resources, government resources, will be invested in high potential areas. And now it is their right to describe what is high potential, to define what is high potential. And that is why they defined agriculture, because most of those people who are in leadership at that time are people who are agriculturalists. So they define agriculture as high potential. That is why you find the infrastructure of this country are concentrated in one particular region. So our livestock, because there was no pastoralist who was maybe in the leadership at that particular time, was defined as low potential. Our tourism, low potential. The oil that have been in Turkana ever since the creation of the ALP was, because Turkana was so low potential, was not, it was not, we were not able to get the oil because then the whole region was described as low potential. Wind power, that is in Yangalani. I believe this wind power have been there in Marsabit. But you know, because of the definition of the areas that were low potential by session paper number 10 of 1965, those areas were marginalized. And to sincerely speak the truth, the second generation formula have no problem. Again, when Honorable Mwaura was talking about probably we will have the equalization fund, but I'm telling you, the same cunning leadership came up with an issue of equating marginalization and poverty. And today, the equalization fund that was in the constitution of 2010, that was supposed to bring up all these counties that were left behind, or regions that were left behind, they equated equalization, marginalization with poverty. So you find now that there are pockets of poverty all over the country. So the equalization fund again goes back to the whole country. It's not now to equalize the country, but to equalize the issue of poverty. And I can tell you again for sure and for free, there's a hell of a difference between poverty and marginalization. Poverty can be a result of your own stupidity, individual stupidity. But when it comes to marginalization, it's because you don't have a godfather in the leadership, in the apex of leadership. But poverty, you can be having wealth, your father left you with wealth, but you use that wealth for your own whatever, pompe, nini. So they are different. So nowadays they have equated. Now when we came to the second generation formula, they had to change the second generation formula to come up with the third generation formula, saying and pretending that we have to invest in people. Which government will invest on people? Government invests on land. And Honorable Mwaura had said very clearly, you develop that desert, people will move to that desert. Are over congested in central Kenya. We need to offload these people. And let me tell you, it is not the issue of tribalism. I'm not talking from a tribal angle, because for me and for most of pastoralists, believe that every Kenyan have a right to own property in the four corners of our country. If you have a right and to own and work in the four corners of our country, let us develop the four corners of our country. We offload populations that are constraining on our infrastructure in Nairobi or in central Kenya, so that the social amenities are not also over constrained. Because I'm sure the poverty level now in central Kenya is not like the yesterday years, simply because of the congestion that have been there. And be able to develop northern Kenya, which is a large 80% of the Kenyan landmass. Then we can be able to offload. We'll be having agriculture in those regions because there is a technology like irrigation. We will be having, and the soil there is very fertile. We will be having discovery of underground minerals, because necessity will necessitate now that we have to have ways of surviving. And some of the ways of surviving is that we can discover even oil again. In some parts, we can discover other underground resources. So let us, and I repeat, let the government invest on land. If today parliament was narrow, we will be having, if we have big companies anywhere in Kenya, they will have people there. So let the government invest on land. The government can never invest on people. A personal investment is a personal responsibility. Invest on yourself. No, because we are not sharing this money as hot cake or whatever. I'm hearing somebody saying in central Kenya, it will be 4,000 per person. In northern Kenya, it will be 10,000 per person. Who told you? We are dividing among people. We are dividing our resources on the issue of land, so that we know how many roads, you know. On Mwaura or Fwamba. No, the road will be built on land. Hospital will be built on land. Infrastructure will be built on land. Social amenities on land. So, in fact, the parameter that we should be using is land alone.
Wow. Mheshimiwa Sankok, very passionate about the fact that government should invest on land. I'll give Honorable Isaac Mwaura the chance to respond to that because he seems to share a directly opposing view to that. And basically, as you're responding, Mheshimiwa, respond to the fact that we are reflecting on the second generation revenue allocation formula. What worked and what did not work in response to Honorable Sankok's submissions? Kindly take it away, Honorable Mwaura.
Yeah, thank you. My video to be blocked because of some technical issue here. But yeah, kindly note that I'm not responding to Honorable Sankok because those are his views. I'm just trying to posit a case for why this formula has not worked. Or rather, why are we changing? Because it's good for Kenyans to get the right kind of information. And just on a light note, Honorable Sankok is saying that, you know, I'm a senior parliamentary man, and that's true because I'm a second-term member and he's older than me, maybe by 1 or 2 years. But he has gone ahead to support me by saying actually he has more children than me, and they have qualified the issue of population because he should have been having less children than I, maybe. But anyway, let me come straight to the point. Now, first and foremost, for Kenyans to understand that Article 217 of the Constitution requires that we do a formula every 5 years. So it's an obligation. It is not necessarily because a certain formula, you know, has not worked or not worked. It is actually expected that you should do it. And there's a very elaborate mechanism to ensure this happens, where we come up with a proposal from CRA, which is not binding, the Commission for Revenue Allocation, you know, chapter 15 in the Constitutional Commission. And then we take that and then we actually look at it and then we make a decision on whether we should go by it or not. So what has actually happened that we got the CRA proposal and then senators say they are not in agreement with that, but I think it is the most cogent. We have had over 20 simulations, and then whatever that was presented by the committee is what it is. Even for me personally, I had come up with the one that at some point I was the acting chair. Now, but then what are then the grievances of the second generation formula? For those of us who do not want to hear about it, is that number one is the issue of population. Now, in 2009, there were counties that inflated their population. And a case in point is Mandera, where it is on record, as Wycliffe Oparanya put it when he was launching that report in 2010, I was present myself, where there were 3 males against 1 female in that data. And the question was, how do people survive there actually?
I'm not getting Honorable Isaac Mwaura. I'm really.
So how do people, relate that to it? And if you look at the 2019 population, something very interesting has happened. We have actually seen other places in this country increasing their population, and then and we have actually been giving birth to about 1 million children every year. If you look at the average population across 47.5 million, and further to this, the household population or number is about 3.9. That's about 4 people. And we have about 12.143 million households. Now, what is interesting is that a county like Mandera, again, I'm using that as an example, its population reduced by 15%. Now, that's quite something. That's quite something. And because they went to court and blocked any new census, the President Kibaki had agreed. On average, the whole country, that if you look at the number of males versus the number of females, more than by about 500,000. If you look at the statistics, at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. But you find in some places actually females are more than males, which is actually disproportionate. And those are some of the counties that we are questioning because of our porous borders from Somalia and such other places. So the whole issue of nationhood also actually is in question, and we have to talk about it because that is who we are as a country. Then the parameters that were also used, that time, some of them were given more weight than others. Like the issue of land. Land was given 9%. And when you give land 9%, you actually only have 3 counties. They gain actually a billion. Like Marsabit gets 1.5 billion, Turkana gets a billion, and also so is Wajir. So the parameters were actually a problem, and that is why in the new formula of CRA it is being capped at 7%, so that you don't give people money disproportionate. You can imagine what a billion can do to a. Then the other issue that has made a challenge with this formula is money have actually people gotten in the last 7 years. Now, if you look at the statistics, you realize actually there has been more resources to these so-called marginalized counties than than the so-called high potential counties, whose population has actually exploded, and therefore there is higher demand. Even when you have a road, you then have wear and tear. If you have a hospital, there are not enough nurses. There is no medicine. So the question of a kind of tortuous retributive justice, where you address all marginalization by creating new marginalization, is quite emerging, and I don't think it is okay. And finally, on this question, Ruth, is that issues of corruption. Corruption being an antithesis to devolution. How do I put it this way? You have the governor of Samburu, Lenore Kulala, having been accused of misappropriating up to 2 billion shillings. And the showcase of that, and this is in the public domain, is not Isaac Mwaura saying, we see palatial homes in Lavington, petrol stations, and all of that. We hear stories of people buying hotels in Kisumu, in Mombasa, from monies stolen from counties. And of course, a very good example also is also Kiambu, my own home county, where Governor Waitito was accused of corruption. Of course, he's invested at the CBD. So this is an antithesis to devolution, because I mean, water is following the river, the river and the source. The river and the source, I think some of you read that book by Dr. Margaret Ogola. So what then does it mean if you have all the monies that have been taken to a county ending up in the Isilia economy? What happens to monies that have been taken to Kiambu County ending up in the CBD? It's actually an antithesis, because the issue of devolution is, the principles of devolution is actually to decentralize power and resources, okay? But further to it, and that's why I'm supporting my thesis of one man, one vote, 1 shilling, is that if you look at Schedule 4 of the Constitution, all of the functions of the county governments are actually service-based. They are not land-based. It's about services to people. And the counterbalance of that is the equalization fund. And I agree with Honorable Sankok. Sorry, I'm almost calling you Senator. Maybe I'm predicting you'll be a Senator in the future. That equalization fund ought to be actualized. Now, in the last Parliament, we actually were forced to vote that equalization fund should go to the constituency, because of $1 billion on top of their CDF and all of that. But we failed it. In fact, I voted against it, and that's why it failed, because that was not the intention of the provisions of Article 204 of the Constitution. So yes, so in summary, it is a provision of Article 217. It is supposed to be, actualized through Article 218 in terms of division of revenue bill. And therefore, if you've made a mistake, you stop doing it. Actually, if you are actually in a hole, you stop digging. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Mwaura. I hear you saying that basically what you're saying is that certain counties inflated their population, and that is one of the reasons, that is one of the problems with the second generation formula. Allow me to invite Dr. Vincent Ongore, who has missed out on the first part of the discussion. Dr. Vincent Ongore, karibu sana, unmute your mic before I can give a chance to Dr. Murage to give his views on what failed in the second generation formula. Dr. Vincent Ongore, as I was introducing him while he was away, he's a thought leader in tax policy and strategic administration, strategic transformation and corporate governance, on which I said he's been widely published on corporate governance. He's a partner at Corporate Africa Consulting Hour, and he's very passionate about judicious application of resources to facilitate societal transformation. So he's basically passionate about what we are discussing today. Dr. Vincent Ongore, if you're present, please let me know so that we can allow you to just weigh into the discussion that we are having right now on the question of what failed with the second generation formula. Karibu sana, Dr. Vincent Ongore. Dr. Vincent? Well, if he is not present, Dr. Murage and Njagagua, please just
Please
take
allow
over.
me, no? Allow
Yes,
one. Allow
Hello?
me just to mention something small.
yes, please.
Just 1 minute.
Yes.
Honorable Isaac Mwaura, please let us not bring the issue of corruption. Because if you bring the issue of corruption in counties, why don't you also mention NYS, which is not in counties? Why don't you also mention healthcare corruption, 5 billion, that is not also in counties? You know, corruption is all over in Kenya. We should fight corruption in another angle, but not by bringing some kind of cunning formulas to try and, you know, cannot fight corruption through cunning formulas. No, it's not possible. Is 1 kilometer, 1 shilling.
Mheshimiwa, thank you so much, but allow me to just let, I think Dr. Vincent Ongore hasn't joined us yet. I'll give you a chance to respond to Dr. Isaac Mwaura's submissions, but now allow me to go back to Dr. Murage, because Vincent, apparently Dr. Vincent is not around.
Excuse me, Ruth. Yes. Dr. Ongore is with us, but I think he had muted. He's using his daughter's account.
Okay. If
So
you're
let
around,
me
Ongore, kindly just
unmute.
unmute your mic and contribute
Yes.
to the debate.
Yes.
We are presently reflecting on the second generation formula and asking ourselves what worked and what didn't work. So if you're present, please just join into the discussion, please.
Hello, Ruth, how are
Yes,
you?
please. Karibu.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. I'm sorry I'm appearing as Graka Akinyi, who is my daughter actually, because my initial attempts failed. I was,
I'll rename you.
you know.
We can
Okay,
rename you.
It was removed by mistake when we were trying to.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I am looking at the discussion, especially on with respect to the second generation formula, and we are looking at what exactly failed and what succeeded. If you look at the second generation formula, you see they were talking about 45% on population, basic equal share to each county was 25%, poverty index 20, land area 8%, fiscal responsibility 2%. Now, what that means is that a lot of weight was put on population. And my point is that it is social and fiscal infrastructure that attracts population. And so if you have a county that is relatively more developed in terms of social and fiscal infrastructure, you certainly get more people going there and more productivity. Now, what that means, and I'm saying this with respect to what has already been alluded to, which is the sessional paper number 10 of 1965. There are two issues that we need to, to reflect on with respect to that sessional paper. The key issue that has been at the center of this debate has been the fact that the sessional paper talked about, allocating more resources to high potential areas. Two things arose out of it. One, it was misconstrued that high potential means agriculture. So we have actually spent a lot of our resources in agriculture and ignoring other high potential areas like land, like water resources, like many other things that need to have been attended to. The second thing is the mischief of the politician, because the idea was we put in resources into high potential areas, get our returns, and then distribute the returns to all the parts of the country. Politicians did not do it. And so we have a situation where we are first thinking of high potential area in terms of just agriculture, yet there has been a shift in potentiality. We have wind power, we have hydroelectric power, we have land that needs to be exploited, and those are all high potential areas because the traditionally high potential areas have been exhausted. We can no longer have high return on investment in the areas that have already been exploited over the years. And so when we are talking about redistributing our resources and ensuring equity and justice for our people, we must redefine high potential and then remove the political mischief. Then we are going to address our issues.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
thank you so much. Talking about defining what a high potential area means and the fact that there has been a shift in terms of what potential means. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Vincent. And I'll take this back to Dr. Murage to just give us his remarks on why the second generation formula failed before we can go to the next question and proceed with the debate. Dr. Murage, just briefly, then we can proceed to the next question on this particular debate.
Thank you, Ruth. I would like to look at this in terms of not land and not population, because if you can allow me to share the two formulas just for the audience, that we can compare the two.
Just print money.
Can the host allow me to share?
Yes, please. Meanwhile, as you get your presentation ready, allow me to just ask you to, if you have any questions, please go to the chat section and post your questions there. I'll be able to pick out a few questions for the hosts to answer. I can see a few of you are already asking some questions in the chat section. I'll get to you as soon as Dr. Murage finishes with his...
I think, Ruth, the link for sharing is not enabled.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you can enable.
Kango, he's not speaking at all. Huh?
He's helping us with some other technical stuff. You know, we are dealing with the hackers. They're trying to invade our place, so he's helping.
And we are doing very well. Actually, they are really
we are working together jointly with him.
I think that the link is like not working because I can't. I don't know they're able to share.
Possible for you to proceed without the link.
I can proceed. The issue is if you had to compare the two formulas, the second generation and the third generation, as somebody pointed out, is constitutional. That after every 5 years, then we have to change our basis. Of course, maybe the framers of the constitution, though are aware that things will keep on changing. And this is not unique to us. If you look in
Dr. Murage, just allow me to ask those of you who are joining in for the first time, please, and just mute your mic so that we can avoid the unnecessary background noise and get to listen to Dr. Murage, please. If you're joining in, please mute your mic. All right, just carry on.
I was saying this is not unique to us. If there are some guys who have been here before and they have quite some experience. Like India, they have been sharing revenue since 1952. After every 5 years, actually, they are now doing their 15th revenue formula from this year. Also, Nigeria, they have been doing this since 1946. So I think that was the spirit that after every 5 years, we come in, see what has changed, then look at the realities and try to come up with what should work. Now, the second basis formula had four bases, which were population taking 45%. We had basic equal share taking 26%. Poverty, 18%, land area, 8%, physical effort. This is how the counties are able to generate their own internal revenue, taking 2%, and development factor 1%. Okay, those were 6. So the one which is being proposed by CRA has got now 10. And basically what they have done, they have gone to the population, which had been given 45% lump sum, and they have tried to break it down into specific activities which are devolved. as per the constitution. So they have looked at health. They have introduced health, which they gave 17%. They have also brought in agriculture services, which they give 10%. And other devolved functions, they have lumped them together. These are like pre-primary education, things to do with the village polytechnic halls, and they give them 16%, sorry, 18%. Then the minimum share, 20%, LAD, 8%, RONs, 4%, poverty level, 14%, up-and service. So up-and service is another introduction. It was not there in the second generation. They have brought in the issue of up-and service. This took care of, I guess, the big towns, 5%, then fiscal effort and fiscal prudence. Now, when this formula went to the Senate made some adjustment. Within the 10 new parameters now, they adjusted. And that's where the debate is, because there is what CRI and proposed, and there is what the committee, the finance committee of Senate is proposing. And like health, while the CRI and given 17%, the Senate is giving 20%. Agriculture had been given 10%, the Senate is giving 12%. Then other services, CRI had given 18%, the Senate Finance Committee is giving 16%. Minimum share is, that was not affected, it remained 20%. Land, CRI had given 8%, then the Finance Committee gave 5%. So there are some slight changes. So for me, if I was to look at second basis revenue and the third basis revenue, the one which is being considered now, the issue is the parameters are more. The CRI is trying to look at what is devolved, because remember counties have got specific mandate. So for them to be able to perform and to deliver on their mandate, then instead of giving them lump sum population 45%, like the second base formula and given, they want to go to specific issues. So basically that's where the argument is. These 10 parameters, the elephant in the room is, while you say health, you say agriculture, you say pre-primary polytechnic, is bringing out of it is the indicators. If you are to measure health, because all of us, whether it's in arid areas, whether it's in town, wherever it is, health is an issue which has to be addressed. I think the issue is, how do you measure health? What is the proxy for health? What is the proxy for agriculture services? What is the proxy for poverty level? What is the proxy for up-and service? I think those are the issues which need to be dealt with so that we can all agree, if it is health, what is the best proxy to measure health? And as I said before, we are not like doing this for the first time. Other people have done it. We can just look at what other guys have been doing, who have been here. We don't have to repeat the same mistakes. Because like I said, if you look at India, they have done this for 75 years. Every 5 years, if you look at our neighbors or our guys in Nigeria, they have also done that since 1946. What proxies do they use? If you talk of health, what do they use to as indicators of health? Then we agree. To me, it needs to be a very straightforward issue that doesn't need to be so much polarized in a way that is going to divide us. Because this is social science. We should not be having the kind of debate we're having. So polarized. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murage, for saying that we should be able to benchmark on what other countries have been able to do when it comes to this particular stalemate and how they were able to resolve the same, because we pretty much share almost the same problems, the same demographics, same issues, especially within the African context. So I'd like to move on to the next question, which is that there are other funding streams available, and one would want to ask themselves that, you know, other than for the counties that are going to lose out on the equitable share allocation, can they recover through these other funding streams? Mheshimiwa Sankok, please engage us. Can these counties, especially your county, the counties that you're advocating for, do you feel that there's a possibility that we can resolve this by ensuring that the counties that are losing out, for instance, your county and the counties that you're advocating for, as well as even my county, the county that I come from, which also stands to lose in terms of this equitable revenue share, the new formula that is being proposed. Is there a way in which these counties can recover through the equalization fund, through the conditional grants and conditional loans? You know, is this a possibility? Honorable Sankok, please unmute your mic.
Thank you very much. First of all, there is no way that equalization fund or conditional funds or loans. First of all, loan is a loan. So that one is not even something that we are talking about sharing. You will borrow depending on your capability to pay or your ability to pay. When it comes to equalization fund, as I told you again, there was a cunning system of governance, and there are cunning leaders who had delved their hands into the pot of equalization fund and equated poverty and marginalization. So nowadays, equalization fund is almost all over the country. In fact, even Nairobi County, because of the poverty that is in the slums, they also have to get the equalization fund. So the equalization fund is no longer equalization fund. It is fund for the whole country. So in fact, there is nothing like other funds. We are talking of Kenyan resources, and Kenyan resources should be shared in a way that we develop the whole country, in a way that we offload populations from where there is overpopulated. And you know, when we come in cunning, like the session paper 1965, and trying to come cunningly and say that we'll allocate to health, funds to health, we'll allocate to roads. Let me tell you, there are some counties that if we allocate funds for roads, they will be recapping their already tarmac roads. There are counties that if you allocate funds to healthcare, they will be kind of refurbishing already existing huge hospitals, big hospitals, national hospitals. But for us, that fund that you are giving me is to start off from zero, to start a tarmac road from where there is no even Maram road, to start a hospital where there was no hospital. So building a new hospital, constructing a new road is not like recapping. So these counties actually need more. As far as we know that in Kenya, every Kenyan citizen have a right to live and own property anywhere. As when we develop, you know, Dr. had said that some of these forgotten resources, like Lake Victoria, if I can example, is one of the largest freshwater lakes, but we have never really gotten anything from it. There is a lake that is man-made in Geneva that they made so that they can use it as a tourist attraction site, and is making them billions of foreign exchange. But for us, even our own God-made Lake Victoria, simply because those counties were regarded as low potential, will not be able to tap from that important resource. And again, there is the issue of my friend Dr. Murage, who was saying the issue of benchmarking. There are guys who have done, you know, these songs and copy paste of saying that there are countries who have done, you know, they have their own factors, they have their own parameters. You know, you should also say, yes, Nigeria did. How many tribes are in Nigeria? And what is the landmass of Nigeria? What is the biggest county in Nigeria? What is the smallest county in Nigeria? You cannot bring the issue of India. It's like a student, you are doing exam with him, and since he is not very intelligent enough, you give them to copy your exam, the answers. But they end up copying your name. That is what is happening. We will not benchmark with people
Our Kenyan problems require Kenyan solution, because we know our tribes, we know what have been ailing us, we know in 2007 what broke about 41 against 1, we know what is brought about the issue of Mombasa fellows gay saying Mombasa sio Kenya. We know about what happened recently when people from northern Kenya were saying our grandfathers were telling us these issues. We have to bring the country together. So as leaders, we either stand for the unity of the country, or we divide the country in terms of this region should get more because they have more population. We are not, and I repeat again, we are not investing on people. If they find that there are more in central Kenya or Nairobi, get the hell out of Nairobi, go to Marsabit. Let us develop there. Let us give you social amenities there. Let us give you tap water there. And then you can move there so that we can develop the whole country. And that is the only way. Let me give you an example, Ruth. Just, you know, in America, the United Nations headquarters, World Trade Center are in New York, not in their capital city, Washington, D.C. And New York is thousands of kilometers from Washington, D.C. It is in the other corner of America, simply because they knew developing the four corners of America will give them the status of the superpower. For us here, we are in the third one. We don't want to get out of the third one by concentrating our resources through session paper number 10 of 1965, through equalization funds, poverty equated with marginalization in one particular region. And all coming to one particular region. I am in Nairobi because there is clean water in Nairobi. I am in Nairobi because there is a good infrastructure. I am in Nairobi because Parliament is in Nairobi. It should not have been there. Our international airport is in Nairobi. Everything is in Nairobi. Everything is closer to the home of the first president of the Republic of Kenya. Let us not shy from this fact. Let us not shy from it. You know, our international airport should have been in Kisumu. Our parliament should have been in Turkana, and so on, so that we can be in the four corners of Kenya, and we can not constrain the resources that are in the regions that were then concentrated with investment in 1965. We have to stand up as a country and leaders and be prudent and bring the country together.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. There's Rachel Chan who is telling you that there's nothing wrong with benchmarking. However, copy-pasting without relevance is what would be detrimental to our economy. She posits that the Kenyan issues require Kenyan solutions, but we can borrow ideas from other countries. So allow me to welcome Mheshimiwa Mwaura.
You cannot copy until the name. You can only copy the answers. So that's what I'm saying, benchmark. But we have been to be told that where we are benchmarking, they have factors that affect their economy like ours. In tribes, how many are they? What are the factors are there? Where you know, there are so many things that we have to look when we are going to benchmark. We just don't rush there because of allowances.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa. I'll allow Mheshimiwa Mwaura to just weigh in on this debate, because Mheshimiwa Mwaura, we have shared a platform with you before where you seemed to have been suggesting that the counties that are going to lose on this equitable share allocation should basically rely on equalization fund and other available funds. Do you still maintain that position? Last I checked, you were strongly proposing this particular stance.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I think I have many suggestions on how we can move forward. And I think just to weigh in on some of the issues that have also arisen is that, yes, you can actually get ideas from other countries, because we share a similar history. If you look at India, they were also colonized. There were disparate tribes that came together. And you can even go ahead to see how Pakistan became Pakistan because Jinnah could not agree with Jawaharlal Nehru, you know, and Mahatma Gandhi tried to reconcile them, but they didn't. So there's a lot that we can share from them. And also just to say, the only thing we need to avoid is that is the nuances that come with the inherent design of that best practice, so that it is also custom made. And that's one of the problems of our governmental design. Because if you look at the Crown from London, the country Kenya was actually an imperial company for extraction purposes. And I think, I don't know whether I'm very clear when we need to look at that, whether also devolution is extracting to the tribe. You know, that's a germane question that we need to answer going forward, so that then we are actually investing people, not just practicing what I call the iron law of oligarchy, where no matter how democratic a country is, there are some few people who only control the resources. Even when it goes to the counties, it creates a new form of elite rather than actually empowering Wanjiko. And also the balance between big projects and small projects, which actually works. But also further to that, just another small comment before I come to my suggestions.
Mheshimiwa, we have lost you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I think we've lost Mheshimiwa Mwaura.
Can you hear?
I'll just allow.
No, we can hear him.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear him. Ruth,
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so I think, allow me to make a small comment before I come to my suggestions, Ruth, that it's quite interesting actually, that even in America, majority of the presidents are came from around Washington. Because of if you look at countries, the various states like Virginia, West Virginia, quite a number of the presidents, the 40-something presidents of America, have come from there, and that's why you saw like the case of Bill Clinton from all the way Arkansas, and you find Barack Obama from Chicago, Illinois, was actually momentous, because then it showed that then somebody can come from somewhere. And if you look at that in the context of this country, then you also want to agree that for 24 years, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi came from Kabartonjo, and he was a president. So this let's also disabuse the notion that is only one part of the country that had the presidency. We've had that time, and also there are consequences of that presidency to also that region, and that cannot be gainsaid. And of course, it actually explains the poverty that we are talking about. But let me come to the actual issue. Is that yes, number one, we can have cushion funds for these counties that were given monies wrongly before, and now they have been outed because of that disparity, thanks to Abdikadir Ahmed, the advisor to the president. So COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to do what you call fiscal, restructuring. And I think that is very, very important. So there are some monies that can be moved around, because remember, we as senators had actually insisted on giving counties 332 billion. The problem we are currently having can be solved by about 10, 15, 20 billion. So if we can mop up some of these monies, they would actually help these counties to actually be cushioned. And a case in point is where you have monies at the national government, which has got 7 trillion budget, misappropriated in a big way. And this during COVID-19, we've seen a single sourcing of one tender worth 7 billion by some lady called Mignot. I don't know what kind of Mignots are those, but certainly if these monies were given to counties, they would be better placed and would be able to get out of this impasse. So I've just been engaging today the National Treasury, and they say they can actually get another extra 10 billion. They can mop up around. So this is one of the things that could help going forward, so that you reduce the disparity. But however, the new data must apply. We cannot keep on using the 2009 data. That is again, some kind of conmanship. The 2019 population data must apply. Number two is the issue of on-source revenue. Now, I have had it, canvassed very clearly here that we need to have new high potential areas. Exactly so. So if you look at the proposal, on the floor of the House, is that we have actually reduced the parameter for fiscal responsibility, which basically encourages counties to collect monies from their own people. But then this is where also there's a lot of leakage and seepage. And why am I saying so? Because all of the counties combined are collecting less than the defunct local governments. So where is that money going to? Kiambu County, for example, has a potential to collect up to 7 billion. In fact, I was engaged with the governor yesterday. A county like Nairobi has the potential to collect up to 20 billion. And you can go on and on. But you see, there's a lot of leakage and seepage, so that then these monies are never collected, and therefore forcing counties to over-rely on the center, really. In fact, the question is, we are actually sharing the cake. Who is actually baking it? You see? And this is actually some ideological underpinning. And Ruth, if you allow me to quote, to see through one of my reflections today, this morning, up on this matter, I was actually arguing that, today that if you look at the issue of, political ideology, you see, politics to the left or center is deconstructionist in nature, some kind of structured chaos to redistribute wealth from the have to the have-nots and from the center to the periphery. Who actually gets to bake the cake for everyone to share? So what we are saying, in short, is that there should be people who are baking the cake. And again, I'll give an example of my own county. In 2017-2018, because of poor collection of fiscal discipline, as it was called in that parameter, in the generation formula, Kiambu County failed to collect 400 million. And because the fiscal discipline had got a parameter of 2%, lost 600 million. So we lost a whole total of 1 billion shillings. So counties must collect enough and also to ensure that that money actually gets recorded and used for such purposes. The other one, I think, and of course, the investments in those high potential areas. If you go to Kitui, there is a potential to actually generate 7 megawatts of electricity from the high Grand Falls. I would want to see a situation where such kind of projects are actually commissioned through public-private partnership, for example, as a new form of financing and guaranteed by them, so that then you are able to have such as a resource for counties. If there's wind power in Marsabit, those are some of the things that need to be done through PPPs and guarantee by the national government within our limited borrowing space, because of course we up to 2% of the GDP. But then the question that we are asking is, what is that money being used for? Another issue that is the equalization fund. I still believe there's an avenue here. Money should be allocated. The first was 5 billion. If I remember, as a ranking member of the Budget Assembly, that also needs to be properly structured. And I also carry the view that instead of going to those pockets of poverty, as Sankok is talking about, then you look at the 14 so-called marginalized areas or counties, and then you that they get their fair share. The other thing that can also be done is through the government, national government funds in terms of decentralized resources. Again, as I do not want to belabor to say, if you have a budget of 2.7 trillion, then you could have special projects in some of these counties just to leverage on what is actually going to ground. The other issue is about the national government.
Mheshimiwa, don't exhaust all your don't exhaust your submissions. We still have enough time for you to continue with your submissions. Allow me to just cut you short and bring in.
No, Ruth, no. So no, Ruth, yes. No. You called us to debate, and it will be very unfair because people are here to be informed. I'm sure even my colleagues are also prepared because we are not engaging in ad hominem arguments or filibuster motion. This is a serious matter, and we must.
Yes.
It's only 2 points, and then I'll give the floor to the next panelist. The other issue that you can do is the National Government Development Fund, and I think there's a lot of unfairness here, and I think I must say so, because you find a county. Or rather a constituency with 18,000 voters getting 100 million. The same case with my constituency, and that is Eldas. Eldas has 18,000 voters with 100 million. You have my constituency with 160,000 Ruiru getting 60,000 voters, and then 400,000 residents getting the same 100 million. If then this CDF is used better because it is disproportionate advantage, these counties can also benefit because they have fewer people, and so the demand is less. They can even afford to get to give 100,000 to a student to go to school, even to educate people abroad. While us, we actually barely getting 3,000-4,000. So that is can be used to leverage on that because already they are getting what they deserve. Then there is the issue of development partners. Development partners have got a lot of programs on the ground, so there's partnership between NGOs, so that then you can empower people like the Red Cross, Oxfam. They work more in the ASOL areas. In fact, there was a conference, Fwamba, remember, is it 1 or 2 years ago, where the USAID, UNDP, and such bodies were actually interested in actually investing in those ASOL areas because of the potential that could be emerging. I think the Americans have seen something on the ground. We need to be careful with the exploitation. And then finally, on this question, counties are also now realizing their economic viability their own is not sustainable. So they are coming up with what you call regional economic blocks. There is NOREB, there is CEREB, and many we can talk about Lake Basin. So they can actually use that strength to borrow for huge infrastructure development that are transformational in nature, so that then you can have increased economic growth and therefore contribution to the national GDP and the county GDP. I submit.
Right. Thank you so much for your submissions. Even as you speak, Frederick Okango is saying that the Equalization Fund, as envisioned Article 204 has never been implemented, and it's a failure by Parliament where you and Honorable Sankok sit. We're getting quite interesting feedback from the audience members. Rapudo How is saying marginalization and trend during the early independence period made it harder to develop whole parts of the counties apart from politically corrected ones, becoming richer and becoming centers for population migration. The formula should take note of historical injustices, and he says that 17% of the budget is only given to the counties. Now, allow me to ask Dr. Vincent Ongore to just give us his view on this particular matter before I proceed. Dr. Vincent Ongore, if you're joining us for the first time, please, at the chat section, you can give us your views or throw in your questions, and hopefully that we shall have some time towards the end to allow maybe one or two members of the audience to give a comment. I've seen two members requesting to be given a chance. So, Dr. Vincent Ongore, please take it away.
Thank you, Ruth. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Now, I think we are ring-fencing this debate to talk about the 315 or 16 billion while leaving out the 85. Take you on a trip to northern Kenya and northeastern Kenya. Let's start from Isiolo, Archers Post, Serolibi, Merile, Lesamis, Loglog, Marsabit, Turbi, Sololo, Moyale. Then Bute, Danaba, Takaba, Wargedud, you go up to Mandera. I have been on that road many times over the years. And the last time I did that trip, I was surprised because the road between Isiolo and Merile has been done. And what does that mean? A lot of population that hitherto was not there has all of a sudden moved to those areas. And you cannot build that amount of infrastructure with the 315 billion that we are talking about here. So we must be very careful what we are talking about. I think politicians are taking us for a ride. They know that the 315 or 16 billion will not be enough to deal with the issues of equalization that we are talking about. Look, for example, at the health sector. If you look at the counties of, not the former provinces of Western, Nyanza, Coast, Northeastern, Eastern, there are 21 counties in that region. All those counties put together have just about 6 or 7 level 5 hospitals. Kiambu alone has 10 level 5 hospitals. And what does that mean? 82 out of 1,000 live births in those regions die before their 5th birthday. Only 40 to 42 in Kiambu die. We are not talking about Kiambu because of people who live there. Every Kenyan has a right to live anywhere. But we are saying there's a huge difference between Kiambu and the 21 counties. How do you explain that one county in this country of ours has those number of level 5 hospitals, actually more than what 21 others have? And remember that Kiambu has a population that largely benefits services of Nairobi, so that the nighttime population of Kiambu is higher than the daytime population of Kiambu. But back to your question. If government uses its money to put up a facility or call it a hospital, that hospital will attract many other activities around it. It will motivate farmers because they will supply vegetables, they will supply milk, they will supply meat. There are all manner of supplies that will be required. And naturally, that will empower the people around there economically. And so when we and the others, it is not out of their sheer hard work. It is out of deliberate effort by government to invest in some counties and not others. And this is very clear. So when we are talking about equalization fund doesn't make sense. It is not much. We must make take deliberate effort to address the injustices that have been with us over the last 57 years since independence. More specifically, to answer your question, this is not going to be enough because of one, in the current legislative and fiscal landscape, we cannot achieve what those others have achieved. And why do I say this? The constitutional provision on equalization fund has itself not been operationalized. And so even if we were to talk about it, we are talking about a theoretical issue, because we don't have the money. It is in the provision, but not yet, operationalized. The second point is, even if it were to be operationalized, it would still reflect on the quantum already given to those counties, to the affected counties. So if we have a county getting, say, 10 billion, and the other one getting 100 billion, and if you are saying that the one of 10 billion is supposed to be assisted, to be uplifted based on the equalization fund, we are going to uplift that county based on that amount. It will be a percentage of what was given. If it is 10 billion, it will be, say, 10 or 5% of that 10 billion, which is not much. The other thing is, this country has traditionally done expenditure audit, so that the reports that we see in Parliament, the reports by the Auditor General and all agencies of government, concentrate on expenditure audit. Nobody ever talks about revenue audit. We need to expand our fiscal management to include revenue audit, so that every year counties tell us, based on the budget philosophy of that year, what they intend to do and how much they expect to get. And so it's a document that will be presented along with other documents, so that even Parliament or Senate will have a basis of determining whether a county performed to expectation or did not. Because when we do not have, a revenue audit or a basis of, expecting a certain amount of revenue from a county, then any amount is like, if you do not know where you are going, any route leads you there. And then the other point is the underwhelming categorization of counties that require equalization funds. Every county now, for whatever reason, wants to be part of the equalization fund. Initially, the conceptualization was that these were counties that have traditionally not receive as much resources as the others. And those are the counties that were supposed to be targeted for purposes of equalization. And until this is done, we are not going to realize the intended objectives of the equalization fund. And so, as we discuss these things, I realize that politicians want us to talk about 315 or 16 billion, while leaving the rest. We are in a budget of over 3 trillion shillings, and we have to really be sure that what we are talking about will make sense. 57 years of injustice to some counties cannot be rectified with 2 billion shillings in a year. I think we are making a joke out of it. When we got at the point of independence, people agreed that Kenya was going to be a unitary state, and that we are going to, run all our affairs as a country, not as pockets. And that is why I keep saying senators need to know that, first and foremost, they are representing the entire country. They are not representing their pockets of counties and the rest. Because it is a high house is like an appellate house, which is the house of reference, where, the final decision is made regarding, how our country is supposed to be managed. We cannot have a Senate where people are still senators are still talking about their country, who is losing and who is gaining. We can't talk about gaining or losing in a country that requires to be developed from the center. And that is a decision we made at independence. Counties like our brothers around the region, take for example, Namibia. Namibia takes to people to parliament based on the strength of the party, what the party got at the election, so that you're not representing Siaya or Kiambu or Kitui or Taita Taveta. You are actually there as a senator of SWAPO, for example, representing the entire country. And so the issues about parochialism, the issues of provincialism, you know, we must deal with these issues as Kenyan issues without attaching names, without attaching regions to them. Because the moment we do that, then we lose the issue. We start talking about Kiambu and we see Kikuyu. We're talking about Siaya and we see the Luo. We are talking about Lagdera and we see Farah Maalim here. That is not the way we want to run our country. We run our country as Kenya Incorporated. And Kenya Incorporated must utilize or apply all its resources judiciously to all the parts of the country. And that is my submission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent. And even as you mentioned, we are now joined by Honorable Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa. We were informed that you had to attend to something urgently. And,
yes.
Karibu sana. We have been debating for quite some time now, and maybe if I can just allow you to join into the debate. We've discussed quite an array of issues. But we've just engaged the panelists on a few questions which I would throw to you. That the first question we were talking about was basically, it was a reflection on the second generation formula of revenue allocation. We were talking about what worked and what did not work, so that now we find ourselves in debating about the third generation revenue formula allocation. Then the question that is at hand right now is that, can the counties that are losing out basically recover through other funding streams, such as the equalization fund, the conditional grants that are available? So if you can be able to address yourself on these two issues, kindly just take it away. What failed, what worked with the second generation revenue allocation formula? And then now to the question at hand right now, can the counties that are losing out be able to recover from other sources of funding?
You know, we had a very well thought out thing in our constitution last time to create what we call the equalization fund. And the idea of the equalization fund was to try and bring all these counties or areas that have been left behind right from the colonial time up to speed with the rest of the country. Because you can have a constitution and you can have all the constitution, but as long as there is no one, or by the resolution, a determination by a nation to leave what you call to live within the spirit and the letter and the object of the constitution itself, then you'll always find people who are trying to play games. You know, this country started on the wrong footing right from independence. Right from independence. I mean, when we got independence, the people who came to power at that time more or less treated this country as moral, for lack of a better way of describing this, that this now belongs to us. And we determine how it's going to be run from then on and decide we're going to starve out certain sections of the country from development by coming up with what was called then the sessional paper number 10, in which there was the intensification of the investments of the government in the high potential areas, as opposed to extensification of the economy itself. And that we probably got a little bit out of that last time under this new dispensation. And right from then on, after the population census of 2009, there was a spirited efforts on parts of the leadership of this country to question, you know, such very basic, rudimentary, selfish, I would say very selfish things like, why should Garissa or Mandera or Wajir have better than this or that place? No, the moment you come up with that one, then it becomes the honesty and the integrity, the patriotism, the nationalism of this country goes out through the window. And then people will now begin looking for how to cook numbers, how to cook figures, how to come up with every possible avenue or detour or cul-de-sac, if you want to say it, in which you can eliminate other people and take it away from them. And I think as long as that mistrust is there in this country, which has bedeviled us from the beginning, I mean, nothing short of a change of the way we look at this thing. The previous panelist was saying, when you're a senator, you are a senator for the whole country. You're not a senator just for your own area. Now, that has got to be the psyche of the country itself. And the only way you can do that and you can achieve that is if it comes from the powers or the people who control the instruments of the government. Let me tell you one thing. The instruments of the government in our country here is controlled by just one person. We have a CEO of the country, and that's the president. And unfortunately, successively for a number of years now, all the 50-something years we have had in this place, we've had what, for lack of a better way of looking at it, amounts very close to a state capture, as opposed to the thing.
I'm not getting him.
Yeah,
the
are
four
losing
corners
you,
of this country. So
yes.
yes. Now I can hear you.
Okay. Or kindly proceed. We had lost you at some point, so just proceed.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
We have to have a change in the way we transact politics, in the way, an honest way that essentially, and I don't know how to police honesty. I don't know how to police integrity. I don't know how to police patriotism and nationalism. Something that only has relevance only to the extent which it takes care of the selfish ends of those particular people that time. So I think we have a problem, and I don't know how we're going to solve this problem, and there's need to have a national narrative on that, And unfortunately, for the last 7-8 years in which we've had now the dispensation of Jubilee, everything that the government has done, one way or the other, was designed to try and eliminate that and take us back to the early 60s, when things were as bad as you remember that. These are the problems that we have in the
we seem to be losing
country, and unfortunately, without necessarily, I have a serious problem in how we can navigate our way around that. I have a serious problem because, like I say, everything that the leadership of this country from the word go, and when I say the leadership of the country, I mean the people at the top of this country. Those are the ones who can turn out to be Nyerere or a Magufuli or Mukapa and create a national narrative in this country where you don't have to represent your people or your ethnic or your region that you represent. You represent everybody in this country. I think because of where I am right now, probably the network keeps on disappearing and coming back again. Unfortunately, yeah. I'll try and say what I no. So there has to be a total reengineering of the way we transact politics in this country. A total reengineering of the way we are going to, because from the look of things right now, is one alliance making after the other alliance making. I remember sometimes back in the and somebody came to me, a very, very senior guy in the system, and told me, look, we have a problem right now between among the big tribes in this country. We have a problem between the Luos and the Kikuyus and all those people. And in the process, you small tribes are making a lot of gains in here. And you see, there and then, you begin now start a conspiracy, what they call narrative, in which you say, now maybe this and this need to come together so that whatever is being given to these other small ones here, we can share it between ourselves, and we have no reason to have a conflict between ourselves. Now, these are facts, these are realities. And we say in my language, if you can't say the truth, you're definitely bound to say lies and falsehood and the rest. This country has to have a new narrative. If not, we'll go back to the early 60s when there was the big tribes and the small tribes, the Kadu, the Kanu, the Luo, Luya, what they call Kikuyu Alliance, and all the other rest of the country was in a different format altogether. And that will never take us anywhere. We will, 100 years down the line, we will leave the scene, and this country will still be as divided as it is. And we, at some stage, we might even disintegrate, because when people were saying Pwani si Kenya and other people talk about secession and all these things, I think a time will come when some of them will feel, look, I don't have to be part of this thing, because I will not get any fairness. I'm not loved here. There's a state capture here. And that's itself, well, so be it. The hell, I can get out of it. I mean, the Catalonians in Spain are having problems. The Corsicans in what you call France, the Southerners in Sicily and all those other Napoli and the rest of it in Italy have similar situations. I mean, it's all over the country. The Quebecois in Canada, until of course Trudeau came to and then created a national narrative and united the country. There was a problem. So it's not only unique to us, it happens in many places, but there has to be an honest, what do you call, discussion on these things for us to see how we're going to go forward as a country.
Well, thank you so much for your initial contribution. I see Nyarari Yamumbi is saying that money should follow needs. Peter Danson is asking, Rachel Chan is saying, well put, Honorable Farah, hopefully BBI will solve the dishonesty. And Peter Danson is saying that since 2012, how much has been dispersed to counties? Is there any ROI versus allocated funds? Even as we speak about BBI and Rachel Chan saying that hopefully she hopes that BBI will resolve the dishonesty. I'd like us to answer the question, panelists. I'd like us to answer the question that we do have an upcoming constitutional moment through BBI. Are there any constitutional amendments that you'd like to propose for consideration in view of the role of CRA in coming up with the revenue sharing formula? Like, would you wish to see? Yes, Mheshimiwa.
Before we go to that,
yes,
good for us because it was a discussion. We put some records straight. First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Vincent Ongore. I can't put it any better than how he actually put the discussion. He actually came up with a very elaborate and quite convincing conversation. And there are some issues like who is baking the cake. These issues are what Kenyans are asking. And I can take you down to who is baking the cake, because the cake, how much is being baked from the port of Mombasa, directly or indirectly? How much is being baked by tourism industry, directly and indirectly? A tourist, for him to come to Kenya or for her to come to Kenya, he have to use Kenya Airways. He will use our port, our airport. He will use our taxis. How much is being made directly and indirectly? So the issue of who is baking the cake should not be, should not arise if we are one. The wind power in Loyangalani. How much can it really earn Kenya if they were to sell that particular electricity? And the issue of CDF also, that some constituency have 18,000 people. So this issue of one shilling, it is disintegrating in this country, because yes, when you are in a populous constituency, you will be able to give your student 3,000 so that they go to a national school, which is just over the fence. But for a Turkana, you will give 10,000 to go to a national hospital, which is 1,000 kilometers away. So let us really be genuine in this particular conversation. And I think for me, the way forward, we as pastoralists are willing to renegotiate this issue. Let us have barter trade, give and take. We give you the issue of one man, one vote. We will not disturb with you, but also give 1 kilometer, 1 shilling. And don't again negotiate with us. Let us have barter trade, give and take. That's the only issue. And then the issue, there is 16 billion versus 3 trillion. And it is Parliament that is not increasing the allocation of the devolved fund. We will not increase until that time when we have that formula of 1 kilometer, 1 shilling. That is the only time that we can actually
I agree on that. Lastly, we can cook figures in census, but we can never cook the landmass. So let the government invest on landmass. Figures can be cooked, they can be doctored, they can be engineered to a certain kind of political narrative. But for the landmass, we know our boundaries, we'll never cook them. So on landmass. That is it.
All right, Mheshimiwa, before I even go to the discussion about BBI, I think you're very passionate about landmass, but before I go to the discussion about, what recommendations you panelists would wish to put, any changes that you'd like to see on the role of CRA in making the revenue sharing formula in the upcoming BBI debate that is basically looming right in front of our eyes, I'd like to just ask the question to especially Mheshimiwa Isaac Mwaura. Should the Senate's oversight role with respect to varying recommendations be expanded more or shrunk? Should the Senate's role be expanded more or shrunk when it comes to the Senate, the varying recommendations from the CRA?
Yeah, thank you, Ruth, and I must really thank Honorable Farah. He represents a wealth of experience, and also Dr. Ongore for their submissions, because we are here to actually debate to see the other side of the coin, so that we can be more informed as Kenyans. I think.
Thank you.
Before I come to the issue about what you've asked me, what Senate needs to do, allow me just to make clear that Kiambu doesn't have 10 level 5 hospitals. It's good to say that, because that may be taken wrongly. We only have Gatundu, Kiambu, and Thika. Those are actually 3. Kayuri Farah Hospital is actually in Roysambu, that is Nairobi. And just also to say, Kiambu has a serious issue because you have medics coming to Kiambu, but they are actually coming for postgraduate. In fact, I had a discussion in the CEC Health. Many of the workers are here because it's near Nairobi and they want to go to school, so they don't serve the population. And further, to also give you another example, is that if you look at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, it serves 21 counties. It's shocking. If you go to Eldoret, you see that. It is very, very, very deprived, and now we need more hospitals. But also, there's a tragedy of Tana River County, where the county hospital was given 700 million, and there's nothing to show for it. And this is evident. Go, you see that. So that also these monies are actually disappearing. So I think also to say that there's a lot of inflow of these Kiambu hospitals from the neighboring counties, and that's okay. Like Gatondo is fairly good, and I'm surprised sometimes when I hear people move from Nairobi to Gatondo. That's what we need people to do in our hospitals. But then Ruiru Hospital, it is just a shell. It's actually nothing there. It's a level 4, but it's neither here or there. In fact, the other day, I personally was the one giving them sanitizers, you can imagine. Now, the other one that I also want to say is that let's really not try to downplay the sheer work of people. People work very hard, and everybody works very hard, and the numbers also count actually, because the more the merrier. If you have more numbers, that's why they pay care, that's they pay as you want. So let's not try to downplay all of us are here this forum because we want to participate, and the number of accounts, we are reaching out to each and everyone. Issue of equalization fund, I think I must say that it actually needs to be activated, and there's no formula. There's no formula that allocates a certain percentage of what account. I think it's good I give you, that information in the spirit of honest debate. That formula, that sharing is through a marginalization policy that's only been presented by CRA, but it's not been adapted. So there's no particular way to do it. And I also had said earlier, there was a move in the 11th Parliament to have the money shared as per constituencies, and we shot it down because it required a 2/3 majority. And then also to just agree that we just don't need to do performance audit. We don't do revenue audit. We also need to do performance audit. Actually, what we do is look at the balance sheet. But people have actually learned how to lie, and this is across the counties. So that when the hunter learned how to shoot without aiming, so of course even the birds learn to fly without patching. So people have actually learned how to do so. But if you look at other jurisdictions that have been to various cities, for example, states, sorry, in America, like South Carolina, North Carolina, West Virginia, they do performance audits. And we can borrow that. And even when a county wants to borrow, it has to be a plebiscite. There must be a referendum to borrow, because county budgets must be balanced. And we say balance, we don't just mean balance in terms by over projecting your revenues, but both, especially the on-source revenue, the one you collect at the local level, balance in terms of actually you spend that money. And even here in Rwanda, and I know there are some participants here like Angel Mbudia, who we have been with into Rwanda, and others. Rwanda, you don't get money if it is not in the budget, and it is, the money must be fast available. Here in Kenya, the problem of pending is because people actually allocate monies that are not in the budget, and that is why we have counties also having to. I think I do agree, because like I've had the Senate being mentioned, and I'm coming out with this question of the latitude of the electorate to patronize the people, the people's representatives. And that is it, because that is why we are there. I mean, I am there courtesy of the people, the Republic of Kenya. And I have been in the two chambers, but I also just want to say this. If you look at Article 95, the role of the National Assembly. The National Assembly represents the people of the constituencies and special interests in the National Assembly. So the role of representing the people is in the National Assembly. The constituencies and special interests, like the one Honorable Sankok represents, or I used to represent. Then the role of the Senate, if you look at Article 96, the Senate, Article 1, the Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. So Senate does not directly kind of represent people per se, it represents counties and their interests. So those of us who, for example, are there on the special seats, we have to, for example, ensure the division of revenue bill, there's money for the groups that represent like people with disabilities, like women and the youth. And that's why, for example, I'm proposing that 5% of all equitable share should go to women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and the new minorities within counties because of ethnic conglomeration and formation. But then I think even when we talk about the role of the Senate, I think much as the state capture at the national level, which then siphons monies out to offshore accounts, and by the way, fellow Kenyans, is good, you understand, it's estimated the money that is stashed abroad is actually 14.8 trillion as of last year. That is actually 5 budgets of this country, five budgets. So we are also seeing county capture. County capture is also developing, and we must remind people that corruption is not a devolved function. So county capture is actually removing money from the counties back to the center. And that is an antithesis to devolution. And I'm sure, Honorable Farah, you can speak about this, because it affects most of the counties. And when we are having debate here, much as we may not agree on one man, one vote, one shilling, we must also look at the bigger picture. Now, the CRA formula, Ruth, is not binding. So the question that arises is, why would you have a constitutional commission coming up with a formula that is not legally binding to the Senate? I know the role of legislation is, the law to legislate is actually our purview. We are the ones who, we cannot be seen to be dictated. Even when it comes to litigation, we are supposed to ensure that the legislation must first, be finished, so that you have a neat in terms of the various arms of government. But then also the Chapter 15 commissions and the independent offices thereof are kind of a fourth arm of government. So they are not ornamental in nature. I know they have been borrowed from other jurisdictions like South Africa, Germany, and America, but then therefore, then they should be used. I think for me, in my honest ambition, the CRA formula therefore should be binding to the Senate, such that it is actually removed from capricious debate and contestations of personalities and the politics of the day, because they're episodic anyway, so that you are not, left to deal with something that only happened as a matter of conjecture or design for that matter, which then you stick with. So I think my submission, my honest submission, is that Senate should be bound by the recommendation of the CRA, and it should not be expanded, because then you dismember a professional advice, and then you are left to do politics. However, this is not just a question of this formula. It is actually a question of public policy. And public policies that must be applied impersonally. I remember my postgraduate studies in public policy in England. And one of the things that we used to ask ourselves, if you are to vote for people, would you vote for 100 professors, or would you vote for the register of the first 100 people in a local register, like those who live there, the residents? And the answer is that you vote for the first 100 people, because then there is diversity and there is opinion. Whatever. Why you don't vote for professors is because they're also polemic. They come with their shades of opinion. They may not necessarily represent the people, and they're also elitist in nature. So this is the challenge of technical policy argument versus the politics of the day. So that then you have actually to deal with the politics, because a policy may be good, but it may be detrimental politically. But then a policy may actually be bad, but it is good for politics. This is a contradiction that the CRA formula also finds itself into. And one of the challenges that we have is that senators are looking at their own survival. And it's good I be honest here, because that's why you called me in this forum. Because if you are a senator, you have two major roles, is to bring monies to counties and to oversight those monies, right? So if you are seen to be the one who was the senator that the counties lost money, then what was your need to be there? So that's why you are seeing this contestation, because, and it is why it is defying party positions, because everybody is looking at, will I be elected? Yeah, if you are the senator for Kiambu and you went back and said, we lost the increase of the monies, and yet we are too many, then what was your role of you becoming our senator? And increasingly the Senate is being seen kind of away removed from the National Assembly, because we don't have a kitty like CDF. So we are not expected to do development work. So people see the pure role of a legislator in a senator. And so therefore, the benchmark that is used to adjudicate your performance is higher, and it's more abstract kind of, more policy-like than before. And that also, our people have actually grown and actually appreciated the role of the Senate. I submit.
Well, Mheshimiwa Mwaura, before we let you go, and I can see Frederick is raising his hand. He's been doing so since he started. Before we let you go, I'd like, this question is directed to you, because you're the senator in this particular debate. That should the Senate's oversight role with respect to varying recommendations from CRA be expanded more or shrunk? That has been a question that some have been having, that should your role as a senator in terms of varying the recommendations from the CRA be shrunk or be expanded more? Just briefly comment on that before we can go to what I would like to call probably the last two questions, then we can close the session.
I think, Ruth, I have already answered that question. I said it should, yes. I said the CRA formula should be binding, because currently, if you look at Article 2 or 3 of the Constitution, it is not binding. So that's why you have a whole Constitutional Commission under Chapter 15, some kind of fourth arm of government, to work to have the technical argument, and then that formula is just a suggestion. You understand? And that's why I also went ahead and said that is actually the challenge of policy versus politics.
Okay.
The French call policy bonne politique. In fact, when you legislate on policy, it becomes legislation actually. And if you look at legislation versus the Constitution, the Constitution is called the supreme law. But then what is legislation? Legislation is positive law because it's supposed to empower people. But then it is captured, or it is ensnared in the politics of the day. And that is why I also said senators' roles are two: to bring money to counties and to oversight. So if you are seen to have lost the monies either by increase or decrease, then why did you get into that parliament in the first place? Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Before I ask the last two questions, I will just give a few minutes to Frederick Okango. He's been insisting ever since he started, and I promised I would give him a chance to just say something short, then brief, Okango, very brief, so that I can go back to the last two questions before we close.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruth. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Now, I think the question, the problem, we must put the problem where it squarely belongs. The problem and the solution of what we're discussing today squarely belongs in Parliament, and specifically in the National Assembly, because there's a participant who made a post down there and said, there's a backlog in the audit reports, and it is true. Look at the backlogs in the audit report. The Constitution in Article 229 says that after every 3 months of the audit, the parliament shall debate and approve those audits. Then it is on that basis that it follows in Article 203 that the allocation shall be done on the basis of the most recent audited accounts. Parliament and specifically National Assembly has failed because there are years when the government has collected more, and if the allocation was based on the most recent audited accounts, then that money should be more and should be enough for all the counties. The last one, we must understand, and I saw Dr. Ongore said it, that the Senate is a upper house, they should do what they should do. I don't think so. They are not. And that's why some of us who are agitating for the constitutional amendment had proposed that, number one, we must have a Senate that has teeth, that can veto the decision of a lower house. Because look at what the lower house is doing currently, National Assembly. They're even failing to make audits available. They're failing to catch up with the audit report so that in allocation, we can have audits that are based on recent audits and more money is there for all counties. Then there's the equity issue. We cannot underscore the fact that equity is a national value. We cannot underscore the fact that equity is a principle of constitution, and therefore in Article 203 there is a criteria. One of them is checking on the economic disparities, and equity itself is there. Why are we today trying to lie to the public that population is such a big deal that we must look at population in determining the basis of equalization, determining the basis of sharing the revenue? Lastly, let us be keen. Politicians in the Senate are fooling all of us. They are fooling all of us because they are the solution, and they have allowed their counterparts in the National Assembly to fool them. Now they are presenting this as a drama, while the solution lies in the Constitution that all of them have refused to obey. There was something that people said, we are looking at 316 billion, which is just 15%, while we are forgetting the other 85%. Over and above, the Constitution allows the conditional or unconditional allocation. We have forgotten that even as it is today, the counties have been getting over 30%. It is not just 15% as is stipulated in Article 203. No. What have the counties done with the more they have been given? In the audit report, you will see situations where most of the counties have misappropriated funds. We must ask, what are they doing with the funds, while we are also asking, how much should they get? I think for me, the failure is in the National Assembly, and the Senate has allowed that failure to happen because themselves, they don't look at themselves as just legislators, but the participants of lawmaking. They're not making laws, they're just participating. And that's why I agree with Mwaura when he says to them, they have got nothing to do with development. They just, represent the interests of the counties. Unfortunately, majority of them are representing their own interest. That's why you see there's a team that is supporting Sakaja's amendment. There's a team that's supporting Linturi. There's a team that is supporting, the Finance and Budget Committee of the Senate. I submit.
Thank you, Frederick. Thank you so much. I am informed that our time is pretty much, we are way above our time. And just to come to a close to this debate, before I call to a close to this debate, where we'll be asking one final question to the panelists, allow me to remind you that this forum has been organized by Nairobi Forward, whose convener is Fwamba Nc Fwamba, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to just pose the last question, which would bring the debate to a close, which is that, which is the way for Kenya now? Moving forward, what should be the way for us? Is it the equity way or the equality way? Because there has been, the debate among some senators has been, is it about equality or equity? How do we achieve a win-win situation for the country? And allow me to just ask Honorable Farah Maalim to begin us off by answering the question, is it the equity way or the equality way? How do we achieve a win-win as we bring this debate to a close? Honorable Farah, are you present? Okay, if Honorable Farah Maalim is not present, Honorable Sankok, would you be kind enough to just bring us to a close? Oh, please unmute your mic.
Okay. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can now hear you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yeah. These are two criteria that are not mutually exclusive. We have equality as a value in this country, and we have equity also as a value in this country. So you cannot say either or. We can have them both. We can have them both in the sense that equity is basically to address the disparities, is to address what they call the inequality in terms of the original investment and the current investments. You know, you will go to, I drive from here for 700 kilometers, and there's only about 120 kilometers tarmac, all the way to Mandera. And from here to the border in Liboi, there's not some differences in which this country has used its own resources over the last 60 years and the 70 years of colonialism, because colonialism was here, came to our country only as an extraction, what do you call to take everything from us. So those peripheral areas did not have any value for them. And independence was about making sure that we have our own government, we have our own values, we have our own equality and equity, and we take care of every corner of this country. So those two are not mutually exclusive. Personally, the way I see it, there has to be a fundamental reengineering of the way we're going to perceive ourselves as Kenyans. Either we do it the Tanzanian way, because Magufuli's community out of a country of over 50 million is only about 3,000, I'm told. That's the family he comes from. And you see, it's the content of your character and what you have in your head that should determine how certain things should be done. Not what clan you are coming from, what ethnicity, what part of the country, what region, whether you grow coffee and tea, or you only take care of camels. So there has to be a new approach to this. The Kenya we want, there was the Kenya we want way back. Unfortunately, these are things that we always engage in because we have certain problems. And as soon as we feel that we have something good, then we go back. I think those two are not mutually exclusive. We have to have a new way of approaching to make sure that the areas that feel that they have been traditionally and historically marginalized must, first and foremost, be brought to speed with the rest of the country. For God's sake, you cannot ask me to run with you in a race and then you have a head start of 200 meters, and we're supposed to do for the field. And then you have already got 200 meters, you already got 300 meters, and you expect me to catch up with you. There's no way I can catch up with you. There has to be a formula that will allow the areas that were never developed, not by we will always be scheming one way or the other. Will come together, they'll pick up one big tribe that's going to tell them, okay, fine, I'll take care of your interests. And this country will be pushed and pulled and, all the way from the moment we started. We started on the wrong footing. We have to correct our footings right now. Let's go back to the basics and come up with a discussion, with a conversation that essentially is going to make us treat our country the way Tanzanians have treated their country. We have such a powerful, what do you call, example or role model right across the border in a country like Tanzania, where Magufuli comes from a community of 3,000, Kikwete came from a community of 30,000, Mkapa came from a community of 10,000, and Nyerere Zanaki, Mwinyi's origin is not even in Tanzania. Mwinyi came from Nyasaland. We have that we belong to. We all have equal rights. And we all can aspire, we all get development, or a country where we are going to subjugate one another on the basis of region and ethnicity and narratives, whether it is high potential, low potential, population. Look, the population was doctored, and we know that. Because you cannot have Balambala with 60,000 school-going children, with 32,000 voters in the last election, and now it's supposed to have a population of 50,000. Hogwash. This is it's a straight what they call doctoring of those figures. Now, when that comes all the way from the highest officers in the country, then unfortunately, we shall not have a country. We'll not have a Kenya. So I think there is need for people to take this seriously, and there's legitimate expectations. For example, if a county was having 10 billion shillings last time, you can't tell them to settle for 6 billion today, because you just can't stand them having that kind of money, you feel that money should have gone somewhere else, out of a very, ethnocentric, what do you call, we should not be with us at this time. We're trying to unite this country. We're trying to seek homogeneity. We're trying to have that diversity, like Tanzania, as a big credit for us. And this is what we are ending up with right now. When you see the kind of write-ups that are made by certain people, I was just reading a small write-up by Moses Kuria on how this thing, and it's rubbish. It's absolute crap. And you behave like you own this place, and all of us here, your guests, or I don't know, for lack of better word, your slaves. It doesn't work that way. That is when you'll get a failed state, because if people feel excluded, then fine. It has its own problems.
Okay. Thank you so much, Honorable Farah Maalim, for your sentiments. I've seen quite a number of people saying that we needed more
and
time.
Earlier we began talking about seeing this dragon straight on, the better. And I think this is the right time for us. We can't leave. I started primary school after independence. I'm already somebody in his early 60s right now, and in retirement age. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be there in public. Now our children will live through these things. The first, foundings, or whatever you want to call it, but the people who founded, not founded, but of course who started our independence, Kenya has always been there. There's nothing like founding fathers of Kenya. Kenya has been there all along. But then the people who started capturing the instruments of government in this place went. So another generation, we'll have a failed state, and this country is going to disintegrate. There's no doubt about that. If we don't change the way we look at things, and the way we transact politics, and the way we handle our own social contracts. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I had earlier tried to end without knowing. I wasn't and ended, or it was network. But thank you so much for your contribution. You're basically saying we should find a way of how we can grow together as a country. And as I'm looking through the comments, I'm seeing a lot of people saying that we needed more time to continue this debate. Unfortunately, we just have to come to an end. But before we come to an, I'll let the other speakers also weigh in on their last, basically. But before I get to that point, I'm seeing people saying, Arnold Maliba is saying, way forward is that we should just send more money to the counties. They are choked. I'm seeing quite a number of, Muffin is saying, character is very keen, leadership, the equity way. Nay, Naomi is saying we should go the equity way, but the counties also need to properly utilize the allocated funds. Lawrence Nyanguti is saying we are not accounting for off-budget resources that go to some of the counties, and quite a lot of good feedback from the audience. I'm seeing Kevin Osido saying Treasury released money yesterday. But before we continue, I would like to just let you know that we have a lady within the audience who would like to contribute to this particular debate, Honorable Irene Nyakerario Mayaka, who is a nominated member of County Assembly. I'll give you a chance to speak, but before I give you a chance to speak, I'll give a chance to Dr. Ongore to just give us his views. The equity way or the equality way? What's the way forward for the country with this particular stalemate? After Dr. Vincent Ongore, I'll give a chance to Irene Mayaka to just give a few of her, just give a sentiment.
Thank you very much, Ruth. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Equity way. And I'm saying this because the distance from Elwak to Mandera is 240 kilometers. It takes you a whole day to get there. The distance from downtown Denver to Houston, Texas is 1,600. It takes you the same number of hours to get there. What am I saying? I'm saying that physical and social infrastructure are crucial in enhancing productivity of a county, because people need to move. More people will be attracted. But then back now, more specifically to your question, we need to redefine our understanding of areas of high potential, so that we move it, we increase it to go beyond agricultural potential, so that we are able to, to address the needs of other potential areas. The second thing is, beyond equalization fund, we actually need deliberate off-budget, top up to build, social and fiscal infrastructure to support the counties that traditionally lagged behind. Because equity is about justice. It is justice based on need. And those counties need to be uplifted, just like the rest of the country, that we have a balanced development across the country. Because if a child born in Mandera has more than four times chances of dying before age 5 than the counterpart born, say, in Kiambu, for example, are we justified to ask the people in Mandera to bring taxes? So let's understand that we are talking about Kenya. We are not talking about tribes. We are not regions. The parochialism, the provincialist, tendencies that I saw in Senate are very disturbing. We need to address the question of equity, apply resources to enhance productivity of the untapped natural resources, the vast land that we have, the wind power, the hydroelectric power, the water resources, the underground resources. This will help us to create more wealth so that we move populations from their areas of high concentration to other areas, so that even those counties that are already reeling under huge populations will have a breather. That's the point we are making. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent Ongore. Dr. Murage, getting to you in a short while, but actually let me get to you first, Dr. Murage Njagagua, on your views on what's the way forward for the country before I invite Honorable Irene Nyakerario.
Thank you, Ruth. To me, I think we need to temper the politics, because these are straightforward issues. Like I was trying to say earlier, if you look at, you can see what I've shared. Ruth?
Yes, I'm just trying to look at it now. Yes.
These are the two formulas which we are having debate on. Huh? Yes. The first one was what was there before, yes. And the second one is what we are debating. So it's not about population, it's not about land mass, as far as I'm concerned. It's about these services. Yeah, if we want to give services to people, whether they're in Madeira, whether they're in Kiambu, whether they're in Isiolo, how do you give them services as an vestige in the Constitution? Yeah, because you have to give services to the people. So, and these are the parameters which are there currently. Yeah, and we should also not confuse this 15% or 20% with the bigger the bigger cake. Yeah, the bigger cake is at the center. And how is it utilized? Because if you want to say that this the 10 or the 5 billion which goes to the counties is what they are going to use to develop themselves, to come up to the level of the most developed counties, then we are, because actually recurrent expenditure. So what we need to push more is how does it go to the counties? How is it utilized? Yeah. So because that's the only way we can bring the equalization. Then the issue of the equalization fund. Why has it stalled? Why are we not hearing noise about it? Because they talk about 0.5% of the revenue should go to the equalization fund, so that specific measures are taken. Like if you say there is no road in a certain county, there is no tarmac road, there is no hospital, then we pump this 0.5% to that specific county to bring it to the rest of the country. So I think we need to be a little bit fair, so that we don't confuse the whole debate with the politics. Because I think there's a lot of from the both side. When I listen to the Senate, for the both side of both sides are not really speaking to the issues. It is more of politics than the real issues. Thank you.
All right, so you posit that people are politicking as opposed to speaking to the issues. I'd like to just invite Honorable Irene Mayaka to give us her views. She has been raising her hand for a while now to give us. Irene Mayaka, if you're present, please let me know so that you can contribute briefly to this debate. I have also seen Kizito Temba, I think it's Kizito Temba who's been raising his hand as well, trying to contribute. So Irene Mayaka, are you present?
Yes, I am, Ruth, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been following very keenly on this debate, and I like the direction it's taking, because ideally the situation in this country should be that should actually be equity within our country to cater for that. So having said that, I come from a school of thought that believes a formula does not necessarily resolve development problems. And why am I saying this? This is because ideally finance should follow function. And after that has been done, there should also be an aspect of evaluation, because we are here talking about why we believe counties should be given additional funds. But my problem with counties is, and being someone who works in the space of a legislative arm of the county assembly, my issue is when we are allocating these funds to the counties, are we then going back to evaluate and see in terms of, number one, what is the fiscal effort that these counties have done? And secondly, what is the fiscal prudence that they've done at the same time? So that when Senate then proposes a formula, it should also come in line with saying that if county, let's say, for example, if Nyamira County has been allocated this amount of money in terms of development, and they have nothing to show for it, or that their audit report shows that there are spillages, then they don't stand to gain additional funds if they're doing that. Whereas if a different county, like for example, say Siaya, hypothetically speaking, has shown that the money that has been allocated to them in terms of development, they've been able to show something for it, and that their audit report looks that then CRA in essence should show us a dashboard after every financial year that shows us these are the counties that are in the green region because they've been able to show that they've done well with the allocations that they've been given. These are the counties that are in the amber region because they are not exactly at an excellent space, but also they're not doing so badly. And then these are the counties that are in the red zone. So that in that way, then Senate can go back and tell the people that your county is not going to get additional funds because the governors in place have done their homework. So that, because in actual sense, county government is like an administration. It's sort of like how a corporate is run. So that in that way, then even this debate of some governors being considered to be not performing adequately, then people have enough grounds to actually remove them from office and replace them with people who are working. My point here is that we shouldn't just be in the practice of debating why we should add people money, yet the monies that they already have, they're not already showing what they've done to it. And I'd just like to hear from some of the panelists, and especially Senator Isaac Mwaura, in terms of what does he think about this, in terms of bringing it into an aspect of having the Senate include it to some of the parameters that are viewed for counties to be performance evaluated on. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you, Irene. I'm not so sure if Senator Mwaura is still around, but maybe I can give the chance to any of the panelists.
I'm here. I'm here. I have
Oh,
not
you're here. Oh, okay, fine. I've tried looking for you. I couldn't find you. Okay, so maybe you can.
I'd actually requested to go. Okay.
Let us see you, Honorable Mwaura. Don't hide.
No. There's a reason, Fwamba, why I'm not on.
Okay.
I would also want to be seen. It's just that there's a technical issue here where I am. So allow me to. So do I just respond to that, or do I also give my final closing remarks?
You can respond to her as well as give your final remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rene Mayaka, and I'm very happy to hear from you. And by the way, to also commend the quality of representation that nomination slots also bring to the county assemblies. You are a good example, and that we also want to see, so that the kind of rule of the jungle behavior that we are seeing in places like Nairobi County Assembly and such other counties should not prevail, so that we can also strengthen oversight at the county level, because it is really a major detriment to devolution. I think I agree with you 100%. We cannot just be giving money from the center. The issue of fiscal responsibility is very critical, because it's basically to unbundle, because I've also been challenged by people here to also speak in layman terms in certain instances. When you say fiscal responsibility, we are talking about, money that you generate yourself, like you are responsible for your own fiscals. Fiscals is basically meaning a pass, like a money bag, yeah? So also on money bag, you can look at the history of that word. And then fiscal prudence is basically, how do you use your money? Do you invest your money in the right places as per Article 227 of the Constitution in terms of procurement, where there's value for money, or Section 30 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act? Or do you just go and give people, tenders because they are your friends, because there is an emotional thing? How do counties, for example, ensure that they follow their, the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, that is a 5-year strategic plan for the county, the annual development plan, the county fiscal strategy paper, and such other planning structures. And then I'm very happy to say I've seen a lot of improvement in counties. We've interacted with the counties assemblies of Makueni, for example, very good. And even right now, as a member of the devolution committee of Senate, led by Senator Moses Kajwang, we are trying to resolve the impasse that is in Kirinyaga County. And we were very impressed by the budget committee there of how they understand the process. So we also need to know that governors need to know that MCAs are not half individuals or those former councillors. They also have the capacity to oversight. So yes, counties need that. Those parameters, Rene, therefore, need to be improved, because actually there were 2% each. They've been reduced to 1% each and added to roads. So road was 4%, then it was taken to 6%. And you see that is a disincentive. And the argument that was done, because that time I was the acting chair of the committee, was that some counties have nothing to collect. But you also need to ensure that, for example, you actually maybe have KRA collect all these monies across the counties, and then a certain percentage is left behind after KRA has collected, so that you don't just come to do the equitable share. The on-source revenue is left there. So because counties don't seem to have proper, do have software that seem to also siphon out some money. You remember the case in Nairobi also about some jumbo pay or something like that. Need to be corrected so that monies are not taken to governors at their homes in bags. But also in terms of the audit. Now, one of the things that we've also realized is that many counties don't have audit committees. And if they are not functional. Do we have, for example, fiscal analysts in the county budget office, county assembly budget office, the equivalent of parliamentary budget office? This is a very key organ. And it's also good to say that I've written to the both speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly, asking them to also create the office of Parliamentary Audit Office, to answer to your question, Okango, my good brother, from Punguza Mzigo, my brother, the Secretary General of that way alliance, that you need to have a parliamentary audit office, because if you look at the offices of the Office of the Control of Budget, the Auditor General, the CRA, those are parliamentary oversight, arms. They are the technical arms to help Parliament to perform its role. Just like, for example, you would argue about a commission like Teacher Service Commission to help the executive to employ teachers and to ensure fairness and equity of our education system. So if you have a parliamentary audit office, then it will be able to help in clearing the backlog. Because you can imagine a member of the National Assembly who is legislating or sitting and representing and also has to sit through all these committee and all these reports from 575 senators and ministries and other departments. So it would help, and I've written to the speaker. I hope he can agree with me so that we establish good practice. So I think I've answered you on that one. Let me come to the final remarks. Is that number one, the question that you have there on what the Constitution should have to enhance accountability. I think then we need to have a debt management system, because can you hear me?
Yes,
we
can now hear you.
Oh, where did I get lost?
We need to have a proper.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So the Jubilee has borrowed more than all of the other three administrations together. And if you look at the history of our borrowing, you'll be shocked to realize that until Kibaki 1, we had actually borrowed less than $1 trillion. I think by the time Kibaki left, it was 1.something trillion. Now our borrowing is more than 6 trillion. In fact, that's a conservative. We have borrowed up to maybe 7 trillion. And that's a huge budget that is being considered for what you call consolidated financial services. You're paying debt like the retirees, but also the debt. And the debt has also been commercialized. It's now commercial because somebody told us that we are 25% richer. And so therefore, we are now a middle income economy. Let me not bore you because it's on a Saturday evening. But the import of this is, if you have more debt to pay, then you have less money to give to counties. Because the equitable share is actually a fast charge. Is after what you've collected your 1.5 trillion, that's what you give first, because it's a fast charge. But debt is even faster. It should be the first what you pay before you even share your money. So that is something we need to look at. So we need to have a debt management strategy, and also to renegotiate our debt so that you actually sell off commercial debt, and then you get debt that is longer term and with reduced payments, so that then you have more money for devolution, and especially when BBI suggests that we shall devolve 35%. And then the design of devolution, I think, as I said earlier, it needs to be looked into. We would rather have counties administrative, but we go regional way, so that you don't have the county assembly, you have the regional assembly, so that then you have more viable pieces of land the way we partition our country, because currently those counties are too many and they are unviable, and they have not also reduced their allure for the presidency. When you have 47 small presidents, then the one in Nairobi looks bigger, better, and more satisfied. But if you had maybe 14 regions, they will look like they are closer to a president, kind of, because that's also one of the things that makes this country to disintegrate. And then cap the local borrowing, because much of the debt that we have that is making us, and we must say the truth, so that they are giving us 5 to 7 years repayment at very high interest rates. You cap it so that you can only go so much, so that people don't just use the banks to borrow to government because it has got high returns. And then we should not be cheated to rebase our economy because of the new economic survey that has been done by KNBS. I think we are now at 9.8 to 10 trillion, but that should not now give us more headroom for borrowing. And then please separate national treasury from the Ministry of Finance and Planning, so that the national treasury can make more informed decisions, because now they're entangled together, and that is actually where there's a lot of mismanagement. And then the same should happen at the county levels. And of course, strengthen oversight in the Senate so that it becomes a true upper house. And then, because what we have seen the executive doing is practicing what I call bicameral unicameralism, where you actually have two chambers of house, but you behave as if it's only one that matters. That is why Honorable Sankok is here, and he was part of the mediation of the Division of Revenue Bill. And instead of them looking at the facts, they just decided to become chaotic, using their thorax and to bulldoze, the monies that were allocated. That was very, very, very bad. Because if they had actually listened to what we were saying, and if the governors had not gone to bed with the executive, we would not have been in the current problem that we are having. And finally, is to say, equity versus equality. If it's equality, then share the money equally. I think it is equity, because equity is substantive equality. Let us listen to both sides of the divide. They are valid points because we are one nation. It's like two feet of the same body. Let's listen to another. The way you pedal, the bicycle. Listen to both sides and come to a compromise that actually sets the parameters of engagement. Otherwise, I think what we are suffering from as a country, and this is my parting shot, is what I call majoritarian overconfidence versus marginalization overplay. Majoritarian overconfidence versus marginalization overplay. We need to resolve this kind of dichotomy. I submit, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm not so sure if Honorable Sankok is still here. Honorable Sankok, if you're here, please, could you just comment if you're still here, because I haven't seen you present. We have heard from a greater percentage of the panelists that we had today. We've heard from Honorable Farah Maalim, we've heard from Honorable Isaac Mwaura, from Dr. Murage and Dr. Ongore. And for those of you who are still here, thank you so much for bearing with us, for standing with us till this very last minute. We had actually started this at exactly 7:10, and we are now at 9:45. For those who missed out, I mentioned earlier on that this forum had been brought to you courtesy of Nairobi by Fwamba Nc Fwamba, to whom I shall give the chance to now bring to a close the whole debate. Fwamba Nc Fwamba, if you do not mind, please just give us your remarks before we come to a close of this particular debate. It's been an engaging conversation. I could not possibly go through your entire comments, but one thing that stands out for sure is that most of you say that we should have more of these discussions. Most of you are proposing that we should converse more on national issues on this particular forum. So I don't know whether, Fwamba, you can comment on particular that's coming from a majority of the members. I don't know if Sankok is trying to comment, but take it over, Fwamba.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth. Because of time, I'll not get into the particulars of the debate, but what I'll do is just appreciate the panelists and you as a moderator. You've done a perfect work, and the participants for their efforts. I also want to inform everyone that this platform was sponsored by Charles Wafula. That's why I'm speaking from his window here. It is him who paid for this Zoom meeting. And generally, for the sake of acquiring knowledge and sharing the democratic space that we have, especially with the modern technology, we need to volunteer and put our efforts together. You can see the kind of quality of people we have out here who have not had a platform to express themselves or give information to Kenyans. But having Dr. Ongore, having Honorable Maalim, having Honorable Isaac Mwaura, having Dr. Murage and Njagagua, and having Honorable Ole Sankok has helped us have a very sober debate that does not have insults and heckling out there, because we have been arguing on the basis of logic. So Nairobi Forward believes in this kind of democracy, the space that represents the future, and will be continuing to hold such kind of engagements, not just today, but for all the days to come, until we ensure that the process of democratization and fairness in the country is well entrenched. Thank you very much, Ruth, for being the best moderator. It has been so perfect, and I think we'll continue well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session. I don't know, Fwamba, you have not commented on the possibility of us having more of such forums, but I'm sure if such forums, if more of this come up, we shall be able to just give out information to our members who've been listening today, that we shall inform you in advance if you're having any of such discussions in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. Despite the technical challenges we had at the beginning, you've been patient enough to stay on. We want to especially thank Renee Irene Mayaka, who joined us to give her views, as well as Frederick Okango, who also gave in his views at some point. And until next time, thank you so much for staying with us. For those who joined us, asanteni sana. And
Ruth, just before you finalize, I've seen Kizito has been raising his hand for.
Oh yeah, we can give him a chance. I called him out earlier, but I'm not. I wasn't sure whether he was around. So Kizito, if you can just unmute your mic and give us briefly your comments before we close up the session. Kizito?
He seems not to be present.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be present. So allow me to just close this. Asanteni sana. Feel free to leave the meeting at any time. And until next time, I have been your host, Ruth Ambogo, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Bye.